every night at 7, slowing it down. So I am Nakia Jones. I am the CEO and founder of the Lux Pivot, and this is a place where high value women of faith, and when I say high value, I mean high core value of faith. This is where we intersect with what God has for us. And so the pivot is pivoting out of what the world views and says that we should be versus what God says that we should be and do. And so I am just thrilled to have this opportunity to sit down and chat with you, not as her, but as a mom. So I'm ready.
Awesome, awesome. So, Nakia, we've been talking about um, how it's how it what it means to not finish the year. Like this is the last quarter of 2025. And so many people are talking about how heavy it's been, how draining it's been. And a lot of people are struggling through this time. And when I think about slowing it down, and I think about the importance of us uh, checking in with ourselves, because we want to not finish 2025 depleted. We don't want to be just hanging on by a thread, but we want to step into 2026 full,
Yep.
right? And so, what will it take for us to do that? To make sure we step into 2026 full? That means that there's something we could be doing now,
Yeah.
right now in 2025, in October, to get ourselves positioned to finish the year full. And so, one of the concepts I want to just for us to spend some time with is the importance of us checking in with ourselves.
Hmm.
When was the last time you seriously just checked in with yourself, did a check in with you?
Oh, if I'm honest, I'll say the last time I actually checked in with me was on my 50th birthday in May. Um, that required me to pull myself out of every other thing, every other title that was attached to me, whether it be the mom, um, the friend, the sister, the aunt. I had to drop all of those things and really say, Nakia, how are you?
Mm,
So checking in required me to remove everything away and just look at the person in the mirror.
mm.
So that was in May, and that took a lot to do. It actually took a vacation, and so that was the last time.
And Nakia, when you pulled all those titles away and you just said, I'm looking at Nakia, or I'm saying I'm looking at Arlene, and you're saying we're calling you out to look at yourself. And you really did that soul level check-in. Wasn't just the surface that we give everyone else, right? We smile, people ask us, how we doing? We say we're good. But that honest inquiry where I'm looking at me and I'm saying, are you okay? How are you? How are you really doing, Arlene? How are you really doing, Nakia? And the answer is the message that comes back when you pause long enough to ask yourself that question.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. You can't be afraid of what you'll see. Neither should you be shocked by what you hear.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are completely transparent and in a space, the way that you have perceived yourself when you're bare,
Mm-hmm.
when you're not bearing those titles, right? When you don't have on the makeup, when you're looking not aesthetically, but soul deep. That requires a deep look into your eyes, into your own
Mhm.
eyes, in
Mhm.
the mirror, and you're saying, "How am I?" You're grasping at your breath. You're bracing yourself because when you look, you begin to see a person that sometimes you may not even recognize.
Mhm.
You know, that check
Absolutely.
that says deep in your eyes, um, I am not
Tired.
doing okay. I'm tired. Um,
I
I
feel
need
stretched.
to I feel stretched. Um, I need, a reset. Uh,
Mhm.
let's be
I'm
clear.
numb.
I give up.
Mhm.
I surrender.
Whew. And even being able to identify, I think one of the things that came up for me was I was feeling like my brain is rushing. There's so much going on.
Mhm.
But emotionally, in my check-in, there was some numbness there. I
Mm.
was feeling numb because um, you can compartmentalize things for so long that you don't fully and authentically deal with your emotions, deal with whatever is stretching you or stressing you or that's depleting your energy.
Yeah.
Um, and so this check-in with ourselves is so critical because we're busy. We
Yes.
are wearing a lot of hats, and many of us are stretched, and we're almost in autopilot. Do you feel some days that you're in autopilot?
Almost every day. Because when do you realistically, and especially if you are a single mom, I'm a single mom. And before I move from that, I choose to be single at this point in my life. So that's a choice. And it doesn't have anything to do with relation, but it has everything to do with the watcher,
Mhm.
you know? So I have the complete day to day, everyday task. I have the pleasure of being a mom. Sometimes when you hear people talk about their singleness, their or parenthood, it almost sounds sad.
Mhm.
But I'm not sad that I'm a mother. I think it's the most beautiful thing that has ever happened to me. Let me just say that.
It's
Uh,
the best thing I've done in my whole
Absolutely.
life. Mm, Being a mom, being a parent was the best thing that I've done. Um, and I always would say to people, the essence. And so when we are in charge of another life, we take as a weight. On with that, it's an honor,
Yeah.
it's a joy.
Yes, it
I
does.
operate from that place of love. It shows up differently too, right? And so see the way you um it's tough. I see you
some of you are
Recording in
able to
progress.
deal with the father's significant others
Mhm.
and how everybody felt like a family. And this is way before the Pinkett Smiths came along. Let me just say that, because a lot of people like to credit them, and this is not to discredit them, but they like to attribute relationships, co-parenting being something that they mantra. But I saw this way before then. So let me say that. Um, it is different when you place yourself in a position where you are surrounded by queens,
Mm.
where you are surrounded by queen mothers,
Mhm.
lovers of other queens, respecters of fathers,
Yes. Yes.
understanders of relational ends,
Mhm.
which doesn't mean that I wasn't enough. It has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with the time, the place, and the position,
Yeah.
right? So when you say that, I have to say that you are a mirror of the group that you choose to be with.
Absolutely.
So if you see greatness, that's because I'm in a great circle. So thank you for pulling me in to a great circle. And let me just add this, growing me up. Cause sidebar, we all know, and a part of me, I'm the truth teller.
Mm.
I am transparent. You can't shame me with me. So I was a hot mess when you met me, right?
Yeah.
But when you have a loving community that really gives, you can see yourself so that you can love your children.
Yes.
So let's just say that.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And that community, that space that we curate, and we're intentional about to help nurture ourselves, to help us weather the storm, to go through the challenges. We often talk about that, people are hoping that challenges and situations and all of that is not going to come, but we know that it comes. But when you have the right people in your corner,
Yes.
who can check you when you need to be checked, or who could also wrap their arms around you when you need a safe place to land, um, that is so critically important, and for us to be able to be vulnerable. And so when we are calling for how do we close out the year full, and we're doing this check-in with ourselves, we're checking in with our mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and circular well-being.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not in the right circle of support, it can elevate my well-being or it could deplete me,
Yes.
right? And so as we do this check-in, and I really want each and every one of us to really ask the soul heart questions. um you know are you tired? Are you stretched too thin? Are you smiling on the outside but numb on the inside?
Hmm.
And if you are, how do you think your children are doing if you're not okay? Because we keep hearing that, we can't pour from the empty cup. We can't pour from the cracked mug. We can't, it's leaky when
Yes.
we're not okay, right? We spill our stuff all over them when we're not okay because the response or our communication is tainted when we are on edge, when we are not physically well, not emotionally well, when we feel stretched, when we don't have tools or strategies or circles to help us deal with the day-to-day nuances of life. Those, our kids, it spills over to them. It spills over in the responses we give, the attitude they see us when we're driving in the car, taking them to school. It spills over the everyday things like, checking in with them on their homework and things of that. The way we are communicating with them could add more stress and anxiety to them, or we can be helping to lift it, all in how we're communicating. And that communication starts with me being okay, me being the best version of myself, or me being intentional to take care of me. And when I talk about children, right, I'm not just saying the check-in is for, because I don't have no babies in the house anymore, right? But if I'm not okay, my attitude and my behavior spills over to my husband,
Yes.
right? Um, and he can pick it up and say, what's going on? You know, but there's some people who are so numb to what's happening. You're going through a lot of stuff and nobody sees you.
Whew. At least we think.
We think, or
I,
they're
I don't,
ignoring the signs, right?
right, right. I don't know if you can remember the time that I told you that this was one of the transition period for me. Coming from giving birth, being in a relationship, the baby was still new, and then all of a sudden things changed. And I remember one day falling apart, and it just wasn't that day. In my mind, that was the day that was going to make or break me as a person, right? And the reason why I say so we think is because if you have a relationship with God,
Mm.
always speaking. And I remember going through this whole rant and tangent about my discomfort in this place, how I can't believe I got here.
Mhm.
Now that I'm here, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I remember three things about that day.
Mm.
One, the audible voice of quiet.
Mm.
When I say that I heard the word quiet screamed in my house as if somebody else was there, when people say that God has a soft voice, I don't think all the time,
No.
because he yelled at me and told me, quiet.
Mm.
Then, when I did take a moment to be quiet, I heard, you got here on your own volition.
Mm.
I'm paraphrasing.
Mhm.
These are results of decisions that you made.
Mhm.
And so it is not for one person to be accountable, but for two.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that has passed. And now that it has, what are you going to do, daughter?
Right.
So I was in a position where I had to face and own my peace. I also needed to look forward to say, how am I going to move now in my new reality? Because blaming anybody else, no matter who it was not the answer. So the third reminder was the disposition of my children. My children are quiet, right? Except I have the one that is exactly like me, and I think God gave me her for a reason. So the one exactly like me, she was quiet at the time because she couldn't speak. Um, but the look on their face and the demeanor during the most difficult time, I'll say, they were saying something
Mhm.
without saying a word.
Yeah.
And so if you understand that the body language of your children, the way that they don't speak because you're speaking too much,
Mhm.
or you're crying too much,
Mhm.
or you're being mean
Or
and
you
mean
yelling.
spirited, right? The withdrawal from you. as the lover, because children naturally, especially you being the mom, I'm coming, I'm giving my mom a hug. I want to be under my mom. I want to be close. But when they're not, they're saying something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that they're not, it's what are you ignoring because you're so self absorbed about a situation or a thing that you had part in that ended you up where you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just have to say that. I think that accountability starts with us.
Yes, yes. And
Like,
so imagine what that could look like. And I'm going to say in a healthy way, because some people take that awareness that you just spoke about and misuse it.
hmm,
They put this really heavy weight of guilt and shame on themselves that clouds their ability to even process and operate in the lane that they need to with not just with clarity but with intentionality. They're so weighted by the decisions that they've made or upset about the situation that they now find themselves in, that when we pause and do that check-in, the check-in is to give us that conscious awareness,
yeah,
that measuring us as we are doing this is to be mindful of when we put on the weight of shame and guilt and a negative self-talk on ourselves. Definitely be real, right? We want to be real. We
yes,
want to be honest with ourselves. We want to take accountability. But I want to caution us because so many people do that. They go it all the way in a whole nother direction of guilt, shame, and then that guilt and shame is showing up in the way that they parent, in the way that they show up with their children. And then they're deflecting that onto their kids, right? And so then the kids feel the weight of their presence, that their presence is a burden, not a joy. And so my encouragement when we do the check-in, and when we can make sure we create space, that we can invite honest, true, individuals in our environment. You
yeah,
know, Nakia, when you mentioned about being around queens, there are people who are some queens, but they're not examples of royalty I would like to follow,
I agree.
right? Um, some people are in the position or take on the posture um, of authority and power, but they're not using it well. And so I'm mindful about the term and who and where we're using that, because I'm watching us make some very poor decisions when it comes to our well-being. This is National Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And we know that our mental well-being, especially as women, we carry a lot.
Yes, we do.
We carry a lot, and we have to shift so many times, almost like what you and I were talking about, like how many times our brains, we're shifting in
Yes,
seconds. Like when 1 minute we are thinking high level executive, and next minute we gotta think about dinner, and the next
yes.
minute we gotta think about coordinating the pickup from the school or the activity, and the next minute we gotta decide how we are putting together the manuscript for the book, and then the next minute, and the shifts and the shifts and the shifts, and so it becomes a lot. And so I'm calling for us to move at that different pace where we are taking all the stuff that we're doing and
Hmm.
we're pausing ourselves long enough. We're slowing down long enough. Today is your Slow It Down Sunday. And I'm asking you, and I'm calling each and every one of you to do that check-in.
Yes.
check in with yourself, because the information you gather, and as opposed to the information you are ignoring, is so critical. It can become fuel that guides you forward. And if you ignore it, you may find yourself on the side of the road, depleted without any gas, because you failed to check your sensors, you failed to check if you had enough fuel for the journey, and you allowed yourself to be depleted, and your children felt felt experienced the fumes,
You,
right?
not to cut you off, but you asked a question at the top of the show, and you asked me, when I check in, what does that look like?
Mhm.
And what am I experiencing at that time? And so I talked a little bit about that, and then I said a bit after that, choosing to be single. And I'm gonna explain why, and then get right back into the topic, which is how do we check in, right? So there comes a time in all of our lives when we are in a position where we need to pause,
Mhm.
reset, and reflect.
Mhm.
In my choice, what I'm doing is making sure that nothing that stained me
Mm.
will show up in my new. Not the attitude, not the pushback, not the being guarded, none of that. So when I reflect over the years that I've been single now, raising my children, being cognizant that I want to be in a relationship. At the end of the day, just before bed, my prayer is all, husband, wherever you are,
Come
being ready, getting ready for me.
on.
I'm praying over my future spouse, right? But I'm also praying for me,
Right.
because whatever my spouse is going to come with, I want to make sure that it is not a trigger for me.
Mm.
I want to make sure that I'm not disrespecting him with my attitude, that I'm not disrespecting him because whatever we may experience may somehow spill over because I didn't take the time to deal
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
something. And so I parody that with reflecting on myself. What do I see? What do I already know about me? Sometimes we as women, we act as if we don't know that we can be a hot mess. We act as if we don't know that we're easy to be upset, easy to be open. And so you wear your heart on your sleeve and, all these other things. But in the time of your quiet, in
Mhm.
your time of your preparedness, this is the time where you put all of those things up front. For me, I grew up in a masculine, female dominated environment. My mom was single up until she got remarried, and then remained masculine. Masculine. And my father, very active in my life, but he's also masculine. My grandmother, the matriarch, masculine.
Mm.
So as I grew up 4'11", masculine. And so what I had to learn was the softer me, the more precious me, the I want to put on a skirt and be vulnerable me.
Yeah.
And so she's the person that I look at every night and affirm her. Nobody's going to do that for me.
Yeah.
What my husband will do is just make it softer,
Mhm.
but he can't initiate it,
Right.
right? So again, to answer your question, I am honest with myself, brutally honest with myself.
Mhm.
Sometimes even honest to tears. You know, I've called you plenty of times and I go myself and it's true. Just help me through it. But you really have to have people who will also call out the things that you aren't saying,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely. And so, you and I can spend the whole evening and into tomorrow, a whole weekend, and we can talk.
Yes, we can.
Um, I want us to uh, encourage those who will take time to listen to this episode
Hmm.
to hear our hearts and take a sacred pause, slow it down a notch, take it down several notches to find time to create space to check in with yourself,
Yeah.
to have that brutal, honest, dig deep, introspective, reflective time with yourself. Lean into the sacred voice of the Lord who is speaking to you, giving you guidance and insight. Tap your external circles of support to make sure that you are in healthy spaces
Yep.
as you're doing this. And I'm encouraging each and every one of us to take time for these pauses because every residual relationship in your life hinges on the wellness of you. And for Nakia and for so many of us, it is how that wellness shows up to be the best version of ourselves for our children,
Mhm.
to be the best version of myself for my husband, to be the best version of ourselves for our extended family. For some people, it may be their pet. Some people, it may be I'm single, it's my job, whatever it is. But how are we making sure we are okay and not just doing the surface laugh and the surface okay, but really checking in? And then, Nakia, if we can close out with helping our listeners
Mhm.
check in because they've spent time checking in with themselves, they can, I would say, do a better job of checking in with their children. That you are not so deeply embedded into how you are because you've taken time to unpack and deal with your stuff.
Yeah.
And I know I have some people who may be saying, when do I stop to do that?
Mm.
Because my life is so consuming. I hear you, Arlene, but when exactly am I stopping to take this introspective pause and check in with myself and deal with my emotions? When exactly am I doing that with everything else that's going on? It's a real question.
It is one that I have for years didn't answer. So I'll tell you what works for me and what I believe will work for our listeners. Create the space. So, what does that look like?
Mhm.
I committed in 2025 that I have not committed before in any other year, that I was going to plan as much as I could what my day looked like. Now, did it always work? Absolutely not. But I committed that I would go to sleep from this time to this time or get as close to it as I could. I committed that when I wake up in the morning, and so my wake up times are between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. or 6 a.m. is the cutoff. I can't, it just won't work if I don't do it that way, right? The very first thing that I do after checking in with God is check in with me and command my morning.
Mhm. Mhm.
I am speaking into existence. And again, this didn't happen every day, but you do enough of it enough times that when you don't do it, something feels off so that you run back to it.
Right.
So you have to just do that. You helped me build a time where when my 8-year-old now comes home, we do work between this time and this time. There is a wind down period that I had not had before. Um, I was one of those. I'm one of those parents that I'm strict to a certain point, because I also believe that children. We won't go into that, but so I needed to get disciplined with myself before I could get disciplined with my daughter about the time that she would go to bed. So that now I'm not just jumping in bed with my adrenaline pumping and hoping that I fall asleep, but I actually give myself a time period to de-escalate, right?
Mm.
So that when I'm waking up at the top of the morning,
Right.
that I have a fresh energy and a different mindset, and I'm more subtle and soft, which is where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I've committed to praying in the morning, commanding my morning, checking in with myself, it allows being intentional on Sunday and not doing all of the runaround, but being organized around it. By a certain time, I'm checking in with me.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that I'm doing to prepare myself mentally, physically. I'm making sure that I'm okay. I'm asking myself the questions. So, what do we got planned, girl, this week?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing first, second, and third? Who's responsible for dinner this week? Those things clear up space
Right.
for you to be able to have more time with yourself because
And,
you're not wondering.
right. And or more time to give to the kids, because I know for me, I had to acknowledge how much I spent in the earlier stages and days of raising my daughter in a rush,
Mm.
right? And what that rush did for her, and what I've seen so many parents, the rush that we are in, the speed, it does breed that sense of anxiousness and anxiety that we're hearing our kids experiencing so much, because the rush, the adrenaline of it all. And so the more we can slow down, the more that we can do that self-check, the more that we can plan and prepare. And we did a whole episode on Slow It Down Sundays about the power and the importance of preparation. So you guys are doing that, right? So you're preparing ahead of time so that you are organized. I see Nakia do that preparation as well, so that it frees up time and
Mm.
it allows your mornings to be a lot more peaceful and less hectic.
Yep.
And where we want to guide our listeners, and maybe we'll pick this up next week, is after you have spent time creating space to check in with you, and to your point, you have to you have to create it. You have to own it. You have to make it a priority. But once you've taken time, and people think like it's a whole lot of time, even 15 minutes in your day where you just take it down several notches and just connect with yourself will be so important. And then you're modeling a behavior for your children as well. And so much of what we are trying to do, we are trying to model behaviors because they're watching us,
Yes.
right? They are picking up more what they see us do than what we say. And while our voices may sometimes be loud, it may sound firm, but at the end of the day, they're watching our every move. And so when we can model behaviors and practices for them, it it equips them with tools for their journey as well. And so what I'm going to introduce, and we can pick up next week, is the weekly family check-in. And just think about how as you step into Monday, you can say, for this week, I'm going to take time to check in a little bit differently with your daughters, a little bit differently with your son. I'm going to check in a little bit differently. I'm going to be a little bit more intentional in my inquiry, right? I'm going to create a little bit more space to not just say how you're doing, but maybe ask, what made you feel good today? What made you smile today? What made you feel anxious today, or upset, or go at my questioning a little bit different? You know, talk to me about your friendships that you're making in your classes, and tell me what's going on in your school. You know, you're talking to your teen, and they may not be sharing everything, but tell me, how is it really going?
Mm.
Right? As you are winding down and going through your day to day, I think it's such an opportunity for us to, and then when we ask the questions, that we are still enough to hear, we have slowed down enough to listen, and that we're not in the busy mode. So whether it's breakfast time, it's doing bath time, it's doing dinner time, but create space. Create space for the family check-in.
You know, as you were speaking, one of the things that really helped me too was I love beautiful spaces.
Mhm.
I love beautiful spaces, um, cleanliness.
Yeah.
And one of the things that helped me to really feel safe, and not, it isn't about, the area, but to feel safe enough to be vulnerable with myself, is surrounding myself with beautiful things. That doesn't mean that you need to go out and buy the most expensive things. That's not what beauty is. It's about, if you like flowers and they make you feel like you are the most wanted woman, if it compels you to smile, as you've said, if it gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling, then put them in your room. Put them all around. Put them in the spaces that you pray in. Put them in the spaces that you walk past, and they remind you of the beauty and the lux that you are.
Mhm.
Right? I feel I can let my guard down in spaces that are beautiful.
Mhm. Mhm.
I feel like I don't have to be on high.
Mhm.
I get a calmness in my spirit. I like scents. So there are santals in the spaces that I really, really love to be in. And so I made that a part of it. I love greenery. So a good plant or something, whatever it is, it's small things that we can do so that we can become more open, we can become more steady, um, and receiving
Yes.
of what it is that we are enveloping ourselves in. I think that that's important too. And we sometimes don't understand how we can set the tone for what we're about to receive or what we want. I just think that that's so important as you were speaking.
Absolutely. And we do set the tone in our homes and our environments, and how we are, how we're feeling about us.
Mhm.
If we're not feeling okay, the whole house feels it.
Yes.
The whole house feels it. They feel your tension, and they feed off of it. And it doesn't breed joy. It doesn't breed peace when we are tense and on high and on edge. And so I'm calling forth, as we wind down the Slow It Down Sunday, that I hope and I pray that you have taken some of the nuggets from this conversation and create the space and the opportunity for you to check in with you, to care for you, so that you can show up and care for the love, for the people that you love in your life, the people who are relying upon you for their well-being, i.e., your children, your spouse, but just slow it down enough to spend time with you. And even though you may think, I don't see when, to Nakia's point, we create the space. I remember one of the spaces I used to create, it would be when I'm driving to go pick up my daughter. So all that whether it was 15 minutes or 30 minutes sometimes, I was intentional about how I used that space to recenter myself so that when I connected with her, I wasn't carrying the whole weight of everything I endured for the day, but I kind of released or compartmentalized some of it so that I can show up and be there for her. And maybe we'll pick this up next week, but step away from your devices long enough to lean in and listen to what they have to say.
Absolutely.
And make sure you release yourself from your devices long enough so that you can pay attention to you and not so much attention to everything else that's going on around you. Because that little thing is a big thing, and it is distracting. And it will take us away from that intentional check-in. And so we're going to pick this up, Nakia. I would like us to come back and continue our conversation because I think the audience needs a little bit more tools on how to conduct the family check-in. I'm going to try to place some tools on my website,
Yeah.
but definitely subscribe to Slow It Down Sunday. Come back. You can tell, Nakia has a wealth of knowledge, and you'll be hearing and seeing her podcast coming up soon. She has books soon to be published. There's so many things that is on the horizon for her. And when we talk about we're ending 2026 full, and we are not waiting for the new year to activate the things. We've been working on it, but we're in a position of release. And we're
Yes.
about to release some things because the weight of the carry has gotten a little bit too heavy because we've been carrying it for too long. So we're about to release some things, and so we're doing some decluttering. We are taking intentional breaths, and we are making room in our mind, in our hearts, and in our lives for all that's to come because we are doing what, Nakia? We are intentionally slowing it down.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I
And we're
thank you
taking
for
time
inviting
for us.
me back. I cannot wait to be back. I hope this was helpful for someone and just, yeah, we gotta come back. Gotta come back.
We got to come back. We got to come back, and we will because we have so many things. We didn't even touch the surface of all the stuff we talk about. So if you were a pin drop or a microphone in between our conversations on a daily basis, we cover so much terrain. And so
We're so real. We're so
we have a lot to talk about. So thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, each and every one of you, for tuning in to this episode of Slow It Down Sundays. We have we may have seemed to be on 10 today, but trust me, we have slowed it down. But this conversation is so real for us.
Yeah.
And we know the power of it. We couldn't just passively share it with you, but we have to be very intentional and deliberate about it. And so, um, as you step into your week, the space of Slow It Down Sunday was curated for us to come into a space where we recalibrate, where we check in with ourselves, where we assess our week ahead, and we plan and position ourselves for a productive week because we slow down. We assess the terrain and we determine our next action steps. And we make sure that we're not being caught on by surprise, but that the things that we can plan and prepare for, we have. And so I hope you are taking advantage of this sacred space that we have curated for you, and that you're continuing to build it. Because one of the things Nakia and I talk about is that Slow It Down Sundays is not just for us, but we create Slow It Down Sundays for the family. And so other members in the family are slowing it down too. So we're doing this together. So Nakia, I thank you for joining me. I thank you for the heart and the spirit that you bring to everything that you do. I always call you a bright light bulb, and that you are. And so I thank you for shining, and I just want you to continue to allow your light to shine. Allow your light to shine, because there's a path that you are on that the world is going to follow. And so you can't dim it, so we can see where we're going.
Amen.
Okay?
See
So
that.
continue to shine on. Everyone, we will see you next Sunday on Slow It Down Sundays. Like and subscribe so you can invite your community and all those who may benefit from this podcast. We are here to create space where we are free, and we are sharing, and we are slowing it all the way down so that we can be intentional and we can be the best version of us. So
Yeah.
we will see you next Sunday on Slow It Down Sundays. Take care and have a productive week, everyone.